good morning, everybody. And first of all, thanks for giving me a little extra time to get the report out to you this morning. I'm in Washington State, but I left my alarms this morning set as if I was still in Mountain Time. And since we're talking about time, just a reminder, daylight saving time ends on Sunday. So we'll need to make sure we're getting ready for that. The map you've been looking at here is the map I posted on Monday. And what it shows is the 10-day forecast for the probability of getting at least an inch of rain. And one of the trends we've been watching in the forecast is the depth of the trough that's entering the Pacific Northwest and the western United States now, and how it ejects tomorrow, getting into Friday, into the southern plains. And what's been a bit problematic was at one point that trough was expected to kind of come around and almost close itself off. But now it's expected to stay a bit more open. And what that means is the forward progression of that trough will be quicker. And that means the storms that are going to come out here in the southern plains are going to move more quickly to the east, and the ability for the system to draw that moisture back west of the 100th meridian has started to back off. So I'd like to show you the trend. Again, this was Monday's forecast, and here's the latest. Now you can see it's getting much wetter in this area, but just keep your eye on the hard red winter wheat belt here, specifically in central Kansas. So this again was Monday, and here's the newest. So you notice how the higher probabilities now shift farther to the east. And that's a really disappointing trend for the winter wheat area right here in parts of Kansas, given the latest model information. But overall, you continue to see extremely wet conditions throughout the west, including into the Sierra Nevada, Northern California. We're going to see in a few moments quite a bit of snow coming into the Rocky Mountains, especially the Northern Rockies and the Cascades as well. But as this first system ejects here, this is going to deliver quite a bit of heavy rainfall to parts of the Midwest, a place where we do really need to work on bringing up the soil moisture. But again, if you just take a look here, what's going on in the plains, that's an area over the last 30 days that's been exceptionally dry. And to return moisture to that area would have been critical for, I think, the early success of the winter wheat crop. So it looks as though it's going to be a bit farther north and a bit farther to the east comparatively. You can also see we're going to be delivering some of the first precip. It's coming through now into California. Now, another way to look at this just very quickly here is the latest soil moisture data. So just kind of show how dry things continue to be in parts of the Midwest and upper Midwest. So some of this moisture that's coming in here is really going to change things up. The issue is before it gets there, these very dry conditions here have set up the risk for wildfires. And today's low-level wind field, as the low kind of pulls into southern Saskatchewan over toward Manitoba, has created a situation in the midsection of the country where strong southerly winds are really going to crank the temperatures up here, maybe 30 degrees above normal, but it's also just going to increase that wildfire risk. So today's all hazards weather map shows kind of the busyness in the west with the deeper trough coming in, multiple locations with hard freeze warnings here in California, getting up into this part of Washington and Oregon. In fact, I'm right here today in Pasco. But winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings throughout the west, but these shades right in through here represent red flag warnings, and this is a fire weather watch. Got a lot of fog down here, down south, and also in the eastern Corn Belt this morning as well. So let's just get big picture first. The models are continuing to keep this very active pattern through most of the next 7 to 8 days. So what I'm showing you here is a 10-day map of precipitation compared to normal. Now, given the depth of these troughs, systems are going to lift quickly through the Great Lakes into the eastern side of Canada. So you do notice there's a stretch of land in here that's going to be relatively drier. What's going on the East Coast is, a couple of fronts are going to pass through, but there's actually a system that's sitting here off the coast that we're going to watch have its moisture get pulled into the East Coast next week, and I'll show you the timing on that. We do have two tropical systems right now. I forgot to bring up that tab. We'll do it real quick. nhc.noaa.gov. It's interesting. Their names are Lisa, which is now a hurricane, and Martin, which is a tropical storm. And what's just funny to me is the house we currently live in, which we've been in for 10 years, the former owners, last name were Martin, and her first name was Lisa. So I need to send her a picture of this to say, hey, you got a couple of systems named after you. Anyway, sorry for that. Those two systems, neither are right now going to be an issue for the United States. So let's go right into the European model and kind of see how this all plays out. Our first low, there it is. It's going to be pulling throughout the day today into southern Canadian prairie here, coming out of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So the heavy snows will be on the backside. There will be some snow in the Intermountain West and coming into Utah, and look at the rain coming into parts of California. Okay, playing this through tonight into tomorrow morning on Thursday getting out there to midday Thursday and then Thursday evening. The timing of this wave as it comes through the Four Corner States, and we'll have quite a bit of snow here in the Colorado Rockies. The timing of this it's still a bit just nuanced how quickly the wave ejects, because at this point I don't expect early evening storms in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. I think it's going to be a bit later than that. Maybe middle of the night into the morning. This is when we think the best chances for the storms to start to emerge in this area will be. But as we discussed, this system, see how quickly it moves on Friday morning east, and those storms are going to move quickly with it. Now, the Storm Prediction Center has got a slight risk out for this area on Thursday night into Friday morning, and then down here on Friday throughout the day into Friday evening. And it's going to link up with this front that's going to stretch right in through here from that lead system, the one that went through Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And this low is going to ride straight to the north and east on that front, see? So we'll watch out Friday night into Saturday morning for severe storms here in parts of the Mid-South down into the southern United States. And the rain moves right along that low while the next big system plows into the Pacific Northwest on Friday into Saturday. So pattern's still very active. So through Saturday, system rolls up here, front clears, next system comes through, and it's kind of interesting. We're going to have two lows, one that goes south and then one that goes through the Canadian Prairie. And if we keep playing this forward here, you'll see that going into the weekend and then early next week, we have yet another deep trough of low pressure cutting into the Pacific Northwest. And you can now see that system once again delivering more precipitation throughout the west. So this is just a continuation of the very active pattern that we've been in. Now, what we're uncertain about is next week, next Monday, Tuesday, where this next low emerges. Does it come through Wyoming or Montana? The potential for very heavy snow here exists, and we'll keep an eye out on where that next system goes next week. But at this point, the continuation of a very strong bit of onshore flow from the west coast into the plains remains. So let's go take a look at this snow, since we talked about it here, and see what we're adding up. So this gets us through Thursday into Friday. So this is our heaviest snow corridor. You can see the snow, though, adding up right here in Colorado, but the surrounding mountains in the Central Rockies. Now, I do want to show you that the system that moves out on Friday night into Saturday, the latest European model did have just enough cold air to possibly spit out some snow here, but let's not look at this and assume that we're going to get large accumulating snowfall in this area. It's just a current model run showing that. What I want to show you is the next big wave that comes in this weekend into early next week into the west. That one really makes a big push for some substantial snowfall into the Sierra Nevada, the Cascades, and the Rockies. And when we stitch it all together, the probability of getting at least 6 inches of snow, which is shown here, is very high, especially in this quarter and back in the west. But let's just keep stepping this up. This is the probability of getting a foot of snow in the next 10 days. And here's 18 inches. So really starting to build in some early snowpack into our mountains in the west. From there, though, I do want to point out that going into week 2, we might see a bit of a break as the Pacific Jet resets. So we could see a drier stretch showing up. Now, remember, this is late in week 2, in the week 2 forecast, kind of like day 10, beyond day 10. And so we do see a bit drier here, but the depth of that trough and how it will eject, we do keep this region active with above normal precipitation for that November 9th through the 15th time period. Also, you can see the effect of that system I mentioned off of the, kind of over the Bahamas, getting pulled farther to the, into the coastal area here after November 9th, delivering quite a bit of rainfall, possibly from, again, Florida all the way up the East Coast into parts of New England here. So that's it. That's your week 1 versus week 2 precipitation anomaly forecast from the European model. And let's go from here over to temperatures. Now, near record-setting heat in much of the northern plains and upper Midwest today. Temperatures are going to be 30 to 35 degrees above normal. But by the time we get into Thursday, the front is diving through, so significant change here. Still very warm in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. This is Friday's high temperatures getting into Saturday. Now, there's a quick rebound here, but watch Montana going into Sunday and Monday. We're expecting temperatures, in parts of Montana to be possibly in the single digits for overnight lows, and highs struggling to get out of the teens, while the warmth stays farther to the east. So when do we deliver quite a bit of this colder air into the Midwest? Well, the latest update from the European model, you can see how cold. This will be near record-setting cold from British Columbia into Montana. And then that cold really opens up as we approach the middle of the month and possibly overtakes a lot of the central United States, even over to the eastern Corn Belt, with only the coastal areas hanging on to their warmer conditions. This is that pattern reset I mentioned where the Pacific Jet kind of just regains its momentum and makes another push as we go toward the second half of this month. So speaking of large cold fronts, just looking this morning at the satellite data for South America, this is the band of clouds associated with this cold front that started at the southern tip of South America and will advance north of the Amazon. What's interesting about that is, it's very dry behind it, but some of the new model data, if you look at this 1 week sliding window of precipitation anomalies, is attempting out there around mid-month to return better precipitation to southern Brazil, and possibly, we got to diagnose this better in tomorrow's in-depth analysis, but possibly some better moisture coming into parts of Argentina. So again, this is just the newest ensemble data. We'll keep a close eye on this to see how this plays out. Okay, I appreciate the extra time this morning. We'll talk again on Thursday morning. Thanks.